You know they're gonna look at you one day, tilt their heads and ask, "Why did you change?" And the irony, they won't even realize they're the reason? Oh, how? It amuses me, the audacity of people who break you and then act surprised when they see pieces scattered on the floor. You used to be different, right? Softer, kinder. You had this naive glow about you, thinking the world played fair, that people had a heart buried somewhere under those thick layers of flesh. But then, something snapped. They pushed, poked and prodded until all that softness turned sharp. They thought you'd stay the same, just another pawn on their board. Wrong move. They didn't see it coming, did they? They never do. They spend years treating you like you're some kind of puppet, pulling strings, watching you dance and laughing at your innocence. But here's the twist. They never expect. The puppet cuts its own strings, and now you're not dancing to their tune anymore. They'll come around with that fake sympathy, that crocodile smile. "We're worried about you." They'll say you've changed. Well, of course you've changed. That's what happens when every piece of trust you handed out gets shattered like cheap glass. That's what happens when the people you loved with every broken bit of yourself turn around and stab you with the very shards you gave them. Look at me. You think I was always like this? You think I was born a monster? No. I became this. And just like you, I was molded by the very hands that now pretend they had nothing to do with it. They'll paint themselves as the victims of your change, cry crocodile tears, and ask, "Why are you so different?" As if they didn't spend years writing this new version of you with their actions. People are funny like that, aren't they? They'll act like your darkness appeared out of thin air, but they won't acknowledge that they were the ones who switched off the lights. They pushed you into the abyss, watched you fall, and then have the nerve to ask why you don't see the world the same way anymore. It's a joke. A sick, twisted joke. And you're supposed to play along, smile and nod like nothing happened. But here's the truth they don't want to face. You didn't change. You evolved. You adapted to survive the very environment they created. They made the bed, but now they don't want to lie in it. They crafted this version of you with every lie, every betrayal, every time they let you down. And now they don't recognize what they've built. That's their fault, not yours. You see, pain does something to a person. It's a sculptor with rough hands chipping away at all the unnecessary pieces until you are left with something raw, something real. They broke you, and then they stood back, expecting the same old smile. But now that smile is gone, replaced by a grin that knows too much, that's seen too much. It's the grin of someone who's learned the hard way that people are just pretty masks hiding ugly truths. They'll say you've become cold, but they don't understand that coldness is just a layer of protection. A shield you had to build because their warmth was always conditional. They love the version of you bent over backward for them that took the hits without flinching. But the moment you stopped being their punching bag, you became the villain in their story. And maybe that's fine. Let them think you're the villain. Let them rewrite the narrative however they need to sleep at night. But deep down, you know the truth. You didn't change for the sake of change. You changed because their actions left you no choice. You adapted. You grew teeth. You learned to bite back. They'll whisper behind your back, say you've become bitter. But bitterness is just what happens when sweet things rot. They spoiled everything good inside you, then blamed you for the taste. They created the storm, and then cursed the rain when it fell. They're the authors of this tragedy, but they'll never admit it. You want to know the best part? One day, they'll need you again. They always do. And they'll come crawling back, looking for the person they once knew, the one who would forgive, forget, and fold. But that person is gone. They killed him slowly with every lie, every broken promise. And what's left is someone who's not afraid to watch them drown in the very chaos they created. They'll say, "You're unrecognizable now, but you're not the one who's unrecognizable. It's them. The mask they wore slipped off long ago. You finally saw them for what they really are: manipulators, liars, users. And once you see that truth, you can't unsee it. It's burned into your mind, a permanent scar, a reminder of what happens when you trust too easily. You're not broken. You're rebuilt, stronger, harder, colder. And they hate it because it means they can't control you anymore. They lost their grip the moment they showed you their true colors. And now you're free. Free from their expectations, their judgments, their chains. So, when they ask why you changed, smile. Give them that same grin I wear, and let them wonder. Let them lie awake at night trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Because you know the truth. You didn't change out of nowhere. You didn't become this out of thin air. They rewrote your story with their own hands, and now they're just scared of the monster they created. They'll keep asking, you know. They'll keep scratching at the surface, desperate to figure out where they went wrong. But here's the kicker. They'll never really look at themselves. It's easier for them to point fingers to paint you as the problem. They'll call you ungrateful, say you're overreacting. That's their go-to, isn't it? Dismiss your pain like it's nothing, like the scars they left on your heart were just a figment of your imagination. But you know better now. You see through their charade. You've learned that people only love the version of you that fits their needs. Yes, the moment you outgrow that mold, the moment you demand the respect you deserve, they'll turn on you like rabid dogs. It's almost funny, isn't it? How quickly they go from friend to foe the second you decide you're done playing their game. You've become the villain in their story. But what they'll never admit is they're the ones who wrote this plot. Twist, every sneaky little betrayal, every time they left you hanging, every half-hearted apology that dripped with insincerity. It all built up, didn't it? Layer by layer, it piled on until it was too heavy to ignore. They gave you every reason to change, and now they can't stand the sight of what they've created. You see, it's easy for them to label you as damaged, to say you're different. They don't want to face the fact that they were the ones who chipped away at you piece by piece. It's easier for them to pretend you woke up one day with a hardened heart, like it wasn't them who froze it solid with their coldness. But let me tell you something. Every scar you carry is a testament, a reminder of just how much you survived. And that survival, that evolution, scares the hell out of them. They wanted you broken, pliable, easy to manipulate. They wanted you soft so they could bend you to their will. But life doesn't play by their rules, and neither do you anymore. You took every knife they stabbed into your back and forged yourself into something unbreakable. They can't stand it because it means they lost their control over you, and control, that's what it was always about, wasn't it? Oh, they'll act innocent, play the victim, say you've become cruel, but cruelty was their language first. You just learned to speak it better. They'll twist the narrative, tell anyone who will listen that you've lost your way. But the truth is, you just stopped letting them dictate your path. You found your own way, one they can't follow, because it's built on the rubble of everything they destroyed. Let them ask their questions. Let them spin their stories. At the end of the day, you owe them nothing, not an explanation, not an apology. They lost the right to your kindness the moment they showed you theirs was just a facade. You've realized now that you can't keep giving your best to people who only offer you their worst. It's a losing game, and you finally walked off the field. They'll say you've built walls around yourself, that you've shut people out. But what they don't understand is those walls aren't there to keep the world out. They're there to keep you safe. They're there to protect what little remains of the softness they tried so hard to crush. You've learned that vulnerability is a currency people will use against you the first chance they get. So, you've stopped handing it out so freely, and good for you. You're smarter now, sharper. You see through their lies, their manipulation. You've learned the hard way that not everyone who says they care actually means it. Words are cheap. It's the actions that matter, and their actions were a masterclass in betrayal. Every smile that hid a lie, every hug, that held a knife. They taught you more about people than any book ever could. Now, they look at you and see something unrecognizable. Good. That's the point. Let them see the cold, calculated version of you. Let them choke on the reality that they can't push you around anymore. They'll miss the old you. The one who bent over backward for them. The one who always forgave. Always gave them another chance. But that version of you is gone buried. And they're the ones who put the final nail in the coffin. They'll reminisce about the good old days. Tell stories about how things used to be. They'll romanticize the past, conveniently forgetting the parts where they left you bleeding alone when you needed the most. But don't let that nostalgia fool you. It's just another trick. Another way to pull you back into the cycle of pain and disappointment. You didn't change for no reason. You became this because it was the only way to survive. They wanted you to stay small, stay quiet, stay obedient. But you grew teeth. You learned to bite back, and now they can't handle it. They're scared of what they've unleashed because they know they can't put you back in the box they once kept you in. You're free now. And freedom, real freedom, is terrifying to those who thrive on control. They'll try to guilt you, shame you, say you've lost your way. But deep down, they know the truth. They lost you the moment they decided your kindness was a weakness. They lost you when they chose to take advantage of your love instead of cherishing it. So when they ask why you changed, don't waste your breath explaining. Just smile that knowing smile. The one that says you've seen it all, survived it all. They'll never understand it. But that's okay. It's not for them to understand. It's for you. It's the armor you wear, the proof that you made it out the other side. Stronger, harder, colder. Let them talk. Let them wonder. They can rewrite the story all they want, but you and I, we know who the real villains are. We know who pulled the strings, who played the games, and now the game is over. The puppets cut the strings, and the puppet master, well, they're left with nothing but the memory of who you used to be. They'll sit in their circles, sip their coffee, and whisper about how you've become unrecognizable. They'll tell each other, it's a shame what you've turned into, like you're some kind of tragedy. They had no hand in writing. They'll nod their heads in agreement, convinced of their own innocence, as if they didn't hold the pen that scribbled out every piece of goodness you once had. It's almost poetic. How they play the part of the victim so well, rewriting history to make themselves the heroes. But you see it now, don't you? The masks they wear, the lies they tell. Not just to you, but to themselves. They need to believe you're the one who changed, that you're the problem. Because admitting the truth would mean looking in the mirror and facing what they really are. And that's something they'll never do. It's easier for them to label you the monster and wash their hands of the blood they spilled. You've stopped looking for closure, haven't you? You've learned the hard way that some apologies will never come, that some people would rather pretend you're crazy than admit they hurt you. They'll call you bitter, say you're fray, holding on to the past. But what they don't get is you're not holding on to anything. You've let it all go. The pain, the expectations, the false hope. What you've kept are the lessons, the hard-earned truths about how the world really works and who they really are. You've become immune to their games, the guilt trips, the gaslighting, the sweet words coated with poison. It doesn't work on you anymore. You've seen it too many times. And now it's like you're watching a bad rerun of a show you've already seen. You know the script, the lines they'll use, the crocodile tears. They'll cry, and it's laughable. Really how predictable they've become. They'll say, "You've built walls around yourself," but what they don't understand is those walls aren't made of bricks or stone. They're made of every lie they told. Every time they left you hanging, every knife they twisted in your back. You didn't build those walls out of fear. You built them out of survival. You learned that in this world, if you don't protect yourself, no one else will. It's not about shutting people out. It's about keeping the wrong people from getting in. Let them knock on the door. Beg for the old you to come back. They'll say they miss the real you, but what they miss is the version of you they could control. They miss the one who would bend, who would break, just to keep the peace. But that person is gone. You buried them deep, and you didn't leave a grave marker for anyone to find. You know what's funny? They'll never take responsibility for the change they caused. They'll say you became cold, but they'll ignore the fact that it was their own icy touch that turned your heart to stone. They'll say you became unforgiving, but they won't talk about how many times you forgave them before you finally ran out of chances. It's convenient for them to forget all the times you gave and gave until there was nothing left. It's easier for them to pretend your change was sudden, like a switch flipped overnight. But you and I know better. We know it was a slow burn, a transformation that happened piece by piece, day by day. It wasn't one moment that broke you. It was a million little cuts, the kind that don't kill you outright, but leave you bleeding out slowly until you're forced to become your own savior. They'll call you ruthless. Now say you're heartless, and maybe they're right. Maybe you've had to become ruthless, but it's not because you wanted to. It's because they gave you no other choice. They left you to drown, and when you pulled yourself out of the water, they didn't like the creature that emerged. You became everything they feared because you stopped being everything they loved. And that's the irony, isn't it? They loved you when you were easy, when you were moldable. But they hate the version of you that has boundaries, that demands respect, that won't play their games anymore. They wanted you broken, but you came back stronger. They wanted you silent, but now your voice is louder than ever. You owe them nothing, not your forgiveness, not your understanding. They had their chance, and they blew it. Let them sit in their regret, stew in their own disappointment. You've moved on. You found strength in your own darkness, power in the pieces they tried to shatter. And now, you're untouchable. They'll say you've become cold-blooded, but what they don't realize is you've just become efficient. You've cut away all the useless parts of yourself, the naivety, the blind trust, the endless compassion for those who never deserved it. What's left is the core, the raw, unfiltered version of you that doesn't need anyone's approval. You've embraced the darkness they pushed you into. You've made a home in it, found comfort in the solitude, and now it's your greatest weapon. They can't hurt you anymore because there's nothing left for them to break. You've already put yourself back together, and this time there's no cracks for them to slip into. So when they ask why you changed, give them nothing but silence. Let it be a reminder of all the words they never listened to, all the cries for help they ignored. Let your silence speak louder than any explanation could, because they deserve I say. Don't deserve your story. They're not entitled to know the journey it took to get here. They'll gossip, speculate, tell each other you've lost your way. Let them. It doesn't matter. You found a new path, one that doesn't include them. You've burned the bridges, not out of spite, but out of necessity. You can't cross a bridge that's been weakened by lies and deceit, so you set it ablaze, watched the flames rise and walked away without looking back. And here you are now, not bitter, not broken, but reborn. The villain in their story perhaps, but in yours, you're the hero who survived the wreckage, who pulled yourself out of the rubble and rebuilt. You've become the storm they never saw coming, the force they can't control. Let them ask their questions. Let them spin their tales. You don't owe them answers. You owe yourself the peace that comes from knowing you didn't change for them. You changed for you, and that's a change you'll never apologize for, because at the end of the day, they'll ask why you changed. But deep down, they already know the answer. It was their actions that rewrote the story, and now they're just another chapter you've closed for good. Good. Embrace it. Wear that title like a crown. Let them tell their stories. Let them play the victim. They're not the first, and they won't be the last. To paint you as the bad guy in a narrative where they were the ones pulling the strings, it's a defense mechanism, a way to shield themselves from the reality that they lost you and losing you. That's a reality they're going to have to live with. They'll remember you long after you've forgotten them. They'll lie awake at night, replaying every moment, every decision they made that led to this. They'll wonder if they could have done something different, if maybe they shouldn't have pushed so hard, shouldn't have taken so much. But it's too late for that. Now, regret is a bitter pill, and they're swallowing it down without a drop of water. And you're free. You've cut the strings, burned the bridge, walked away from the wreckage they created. You found strength in places they never knew existed, dug deep into the darkness they left you in, and pulled out a light they can't dim. They want the distant sense they dindi. Bukon chance at den. Bodiri kari. Bikindi. Dek. But you creak you that you'd crumble under the weight of it all. But you didn't just survive. You thrived. You've become a force of nature, unpredictable and unstoppable. They'll watch from the sidelines, filled with a mixture of envy and fear, because they know they had a hand in shaping you. They know they pushed you too far, that they're the reason you became this, and that's something they'll never admit, not even to themselves. So, when they look at you now, when they ask, "Why did you change?" let your silence be the answer. Let it hang in the air like smoke, a reminder of all the things they can't unsay. all the things they can't undo, because you didn't change out of nowhere. You changed because they forced your hand. You changed because you had to. They'll spend the rest of their lives haunted by the memory of what you were, but that's their burden to carry. You've dropped yours. You've let go of the past, the pain, the old version of you that clung to their every word. Now you're untethered, unbound. And that's the scariest thing in the world to them, because they know they'll never find someone like you again. And you'll never look back. So here we are at the end of the story. They tried to write for you. The story where you were supposed to stay the same, stuck in the role they chose for you, never stepping out of line, never finding your own power. But you rewrote it. You took the pen out of their hands and scribbled your own ending in ink, so dark it bled through the pages. And now they're left holding a blank book, confused, lost, trying to figure out how they lost control of the narrative. They'll keep searching for the old you like a ghost. They can't let go of. They'll remember the days when you bent over backward to please them, when you gave everything you had without asking for a single thing in return. But that version of you is a phantom, a shadow that's long gone, and what's left in its place is someone they'll never truly understand. Someone stronger, colder, more unyielding than they could ever imagine. You owe them nothing, not your forgiveness, not your explanations, not even a single glance back. You're beyond their reach. Now a force they can't touch, a storm they can't weather. Let them sit in their regret. Let them choke on their own bitterness. They made their choice. They chose to push you, to test you, to break you. And now they're left with the consequences, while you walk away with a smile that says you finally found your freedom. Remember this, they'll paint you as the villain in their story, but you're the hero of your own. You saved yourself when no one else would. You found strength in the cracks. They created resilience in the void they left behind. And that's something they'll never be able to take from you. They'll live the rest of their lives wondering what might have been. But you'll live free, untethered by their chains. So, when they ask why you changed, when they stand there with those confused, empty eyes, searching for the person they used to know, just smile. Smile like the Joker with that twisted grin that says you know something they don't. Because the truth is, they were the ones who changed you. They were the ones who pushed you into the darkness. And you became the monster they never saw coming. And that, my friend, is the real punchline.